Hello and welcome to NJ Biz Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Kanige. My guest today is Matthew Negron. He is the founder of Think Simplicit, which is a consulting and investment firm, I think, based here in New Jersey. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks for
I'm
taking
happy
the
to chat.
time. I say it, I think, because your background is really interesting, and I've been looking forward to this conversation because I wanted to learn a little bit more about how you got to where you are. As I understand it, you have an industrial design degree from NJIT, a
Sure.
management graduate degree in management from NJIT. You worked in the furniture business for a little while. You've taught at Kane University. I think you may still teach at Kane University, a design course there. And now you have this firm that offers an array of services that is sort of interesting to me. Real estate investment, acquisitions, and then executive coaching and leadership and things like that. So tell me first of all, how would you describe Think Simplicit? I mean, I called it an investment and consulting firm. How would you describe it?
Absolutely. So for me, Think Simplicit, it's more of a holding company that allows for different outlets, different companies to succeed that I'm involved with. And I
Okay.
think a lot of the focus for myself has been Blindworks, which my wife and I had acquired 8 months ago now. And
Okay.
then I'm also part of another organization called Flockhart.
Right.
And the goal has been to look at businesses that we can platform stack where there's a lot of trades involved, blue collar, really trying to focus on it. So it's for me, Think Simplicit's more of an outlet of talking to different companies, different business owners, people that are aging out and providing opportunities, whether it's myself personally or it's through these other businesses that we're looking at. Again, I think for me it's really important is we're platform stacking and not just acquiring something and rolling it up into a larger type of organization.
Okay.
We're trying to let it have its own identity.
Okay, well, that's where I wanted to get to because what you're describing is not a typical sort of private equity firm that does the
Yeah.
standard sort of roll-ups that I think most of our viewers were familiar with. You called it platform stacking. How is that different from what a private equity firm does when it gathers companies into one, under its own umbrella?
Yeah, from my background, I've seen acquisitions typically where the company comes in, they buy the assets of the existing company, they may buy the brand, but eventually that brand dissipates. It goes away, and and they may even cut people out of the organization as
Right.
well in order to lean it out, integrate services. My goal is we're really trying to find businesses where one, there's a really well-known brand. It could be a mom and pop shop, it could be bigger than that as well, but it has its own brand identity. It has its own community. There's people that are following it and we don't want to go in and chop that up. What we really want to do is like, how do we take this thing like Blindworks, for instance, that's been here for 40 years? How do we get it to go for another 40 years? How do we grow the brand? How do we integrate into it?
Okay.
Can we help that organization go and acquire more companies and let it even grow more than it has the last 40 years, which
Okay.
is really exciting.
Right. Okay. Well, that's what I was going to get to. I mean, you're aware of what a major criticism of the way private equity firms behave, that they buy a bunch of companies, they load it with debt to pay themselves dividend, and then the companies go into bankruptcy, and then they're gone, and the private equity firm moves on. But that's not what you're describing. You're describing something that's more like a growth investment, or even sort of
Yeah.
you're more actively involved in these companies than I think that most, like a limited partner at a private equity firm would be.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is preservation of legacy. How do we preserve that legacy? How do we allow, a lot of these are privately owned businesses. How do we allow them to grow and have the employees really enjoy the next phase of of their career, the next chapter, and
Okay.
be confident?
Okay. All right. So how do you what do you look for when you're thinking about making an acquisition? What kinds of companies, what kinds of businesses are you most interested in, and what are the metrics that you're looking for that you need to see?
So for me, in terms of metrics, we're looking for legacy. So we don't want something that just started a few years ago.
Okay.
Ideally, we want it to be 15, 20 plus years established. I think it's anything that's on a main street, anything that actually has a physical presence is also of interest because you can continue that, but at the same time, if you can maybe acquire the real estate, you can acquire the business at the same time. And there's some good SBA financing options that are there too in order to pick up both. The other thing we want to look for is it something that's not going to be replaced by AI? And I jokingly say, window treatments is great because ChatGPT is not going to go measure my windows and it's not going to
Right.
install my window treatments.
Right.
So AI could accelerate your customer acquisition. It can accelerate your ability to reach your audience, but it's not going to replace the human that's going into measuring and that's paying those.
Okay.
So then the third part to that is I really like blue collar and trades. And a lot of that is I grew up with my grandfather who was a full-time carpenter,
Okay.
and he built, entire life off of being a carpenter. And when I used to go to Brooklyn in the summer, my grandfather at 7, 8 years old was like, "Hey, you're not going to stay home all day with your grandma. You are going to go out there and you're going to learn how to tile, do drywall, do stucco." And I have an appreciation for people working with their hands. And I think, and now it's more popular the last 12 months. Everyone's like, "Oh, trades are back." And I believe trades have been back the last 5, 7, 8 years. And
Right.
it's a way for people to build wealth and independence. And
Hmm.
if I can help accelerate that, that's exciting for me.
Okay. Well, I mean, your background in industrial design, I mean, that's sort of working. You're sort of following that that initial interest that you had in working with your hands. Yes.
Absolutely. It does. And I think that's how I got into industrial design because originally I was looking at architecture and
Hmm.
then switched to mechanical engineering and then GIT. And then I stumbled into the industrial design program. That was maybe 6, 9 months in development when I got there. And you had a model shop, you could build things, you can work with your hands. And I was like, oh, this is where I want to be. I want to get my hands dirty and I want to
Right.
build
Right.
stuff.
Okay, very good. All right, now you mentioned a couple of companies, Blindworks, which is in Westfield, if I remember correctly, and Flockhart, which I
Yeah.
believe is in Somerville. So, what was your thinking with acquiring those companies? Walk us through a little bit of that
Yeah.
process that you just described a minute ago in determining what kind of companies you're interested in, and how do those two fit into to your vision for what you can do?
Absolutely. So for Blindworks, that was the first acquisition that we were looking at. And we looked at about 3 to 4 years, we probably looked at about 40 different deals. And we had looked at trying to acquire furniture companies, we looked at fabric stores, we looked at everything.
Okay,
And none of them ever got to the finish line. Some of them got really close. We did the due diligence and we got really, really close. Blindworks was the first one where we started that in October
okay,
2024. So it's been over a year now since we started that conversation, which was great. And we were able to assess like, okay, this is what we want to build. This has the blue collar aspect to it. It's going to be AI proof. It's a 40-year-old business where like,
mm,
it's well known in town. So there's a lot of aspects to it that were like, this is really exciting. And
okay,
the owner, most companies, I think it's like 4% of companies do over $1 million a year. And he was doing that as a mom and pop shop. And we're like, okay, this is something that we could really build and put a jetpack to. So we were able to acquire that. That went active on May 1st. We're actually right now, if all goes well, we'll end up acquiring 3 other businesses that will roll up that are all window treatment companies across New Jersey.
okay,
So we'll talk about that more next year because it's really,
okay,
really close. And we know one's happening, so which is exciting. Now, Flockhart is not an acquisition to date. That is a long-term plan. And I think what's
okay,
great is I want people to understand, and college students and everyone that's looking at this, is there's multiple ways to acquire a company. You can do a traditional like SBA financing I did for Blindworks, but Flockhart is something where I really believe in the owner. Her name is Manny Fahey. She's had the business for the last decade. They've been around for over 30 years. They're servicing some of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in New Jersey, especially in the Somerville area. Can't disclose names, but there's some really good ones in that area. And it's a blue collar business. Like they're Flockhart's doing moves, additions, changes. They are modifying the spaces. They're doing a concierge service like ticketing system where anything you need for that facility, that campus, you put into a ticket to Flockhart, they take care of it. And I think the beautiful thing about that is those people that are focused on curing cancer can focus on curing cancer and they're
mhm,
not focused on my chairs over here. I'm
okay,
having a flood, the HVAC's not working. Whatever you might need for that facility, but it's very hands-on. Like you have to have physical people moving things around,
right,
running around the facility. And what's great about it is when I talk about platform stacking, the way that Flockhart complements Blindworks is if you have a facility, you might need window treatments. Great. We now
mhm,
have an internal company that can modify it. And there's other companies we're looking at to acquire down the road where it'll play into this bigger picture that we happen to also have the ecosystem and kind of own these different assets that you might need
okay,
for a space.
okay,
And Flockhart could have the physical labor, they can modify the space, but there's a supply chain from window treatments to paint to
right.
flooring, whatever it is, lighting, and we can provide better pricing and better service.
Okay. Well, and oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Were you going to?
No,
Oh, okay. So the next thing I was going to ask was, what else are you looking at? Where are the next sort of opportunities? And what I hear you saying is it's those sorts of things that,
Yeah.
you mentioned the facilities management or facilities maintenance, I guess you'd call it, and window treatments and things that sort of almost kind of grew out of the furniture business. I mean, you're talking about a physical layout, the physical uh, landscape of a business. Is that what you're looking at now? You mentioned things that you can add to that. Is that where your most of your opportunities are at this point?
That's where a lot of our opportunities are right
Right.
now because all of those things I mentioned still require a human and a person to go do it. Like
Right.
if you're going to get your space painted, flooring installed, we're a long ways off from robots having the tactile ability and in order to install those things, which I think is exciting, is that
Right.
we could bring so much pride back to hard labor and hard work, but also pay people the appropriate amount that they deserve for that kind of work. And it's a value add because the hardest thing, a lot of people post COVID aren't going back to the office as much. And I'm a believer that people still want to go back to the office. They just want the right spaces. They want spaces
Okay.
that are intentional and they want to have space like, hey, I want to be here. And if we can provide that through managing the facility combined with owning different companies where we have the products that enhance that space, it's a beautiful ecosystem we can provide.
Okay. And the kind of companies you're describing, for example, I think you said BlindWorks was 40 years old. I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about when we talk to, for example, when I talk to folks who are owners of family businesses, for example, a lot of the owners are starting to get on a little bit in years and are thinking about retiring or thinking about moving on. Are you finding that's a dynamic that you can take advantage of?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And, for BlindWorks, the existing owner, his name was Doug and his wife was Beth, and they had the business for the 40 years. He was 71 years old and they wanted to enjoy more time with their grandkids and
Right.
they were healthy, they were great, and they just wanted more time. But what's been great is after we acquired BlindWorks, Doug is actually still involved. He still helps us with
Okay.
some
Oh,
sales, he still services some clients because he just doesn't want to manage the business every
right.
single day.
Right.
So he was like, hey, if you want to have me as a salesperson, on commission, why not? Like I can still go run around, I can be busy, I'm not home all day. So it's been this really nice transition. And there's another individual where we just acquired his book of business. And he had a 40, he also started in 1985. So a 40-year-old business. And same thing is he doesn't want to manage it every day, but he doesn't
Right.
mind doing an appointment once or twice a week and stay busy.
Mhm. Okay.
And I
All
think
right.
that's such a nice transition plan because now it's not like, oh yeah, the old owner, what they built, they're completely gone. It's like, no, they're actually still kind of involved. There's
Mhm.
some integrity that's there. They're still busy, they're healthy, and they want to be out there.
Okay. And I imagine with customers and clients, they like seeing a familiar face. I'm assuming, yes.
Yes. And I think a huge benefit has been saying, oh yeah, Doug's actually been training us. He's been working with us. And it's
Okay.
such a they're like, oh man, we love Doug. It's so great that he's not just training like me, but he's also
Mhm.
training our salespeople that we
Okay.
hired. And they're learning from him and they're younger and they're getting this wealth of knowledge that would be so hard to get if we were like, hey, Doug, you're out the door, goodbye. And it doesn't, it's not the story I want to give to the market either. I
Right.
really want to have these beautiful transition stories where people look at it and they're like, we could do that too. Like we could buy this business and we could also give that owner a beautiful kind of send off that doesn't have to be right away. It could be
Right.
months, it could be years, but it's a beautiful story.
Okay. All right. And I'm curious. These two these two companies are in New Jersey. Is New Jersey what you're focusing on now? Are you thinking of moving out of state? What market are you looking at exactly?
Currently, New Jersey, and
Geographically, I mean.
yeah, so currently New Jersey, I would say the focus right now is we're going as high as Tenafly and as low as Princeton
Okay.
and kind of everything in between. And we feel like that's a manageable territory to start with. I think naturally with, Flockhart already services New York City, the Port Authority. So we already have some branches that are going that way too. And then we've talked to some companies that have some presence in like lower Connecticut, New York
Okay.
City. So we might expand out there, but I want to do it in a way that's mindful and not to be too cautious, but I also want to make sure that I can physically go out to these locations, go see people, go work with teams because you can do a lot virtually, but I think for where we are today, I really want to still be physically present as much as I can.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's plenty of time to to think about other states. So, um,
Yeah.
okay. Before I let you go, let me ask you a little bit about what you're expecting over the next year or so. I mean, we're at the end of the year. 2026 is right around the corner. This will probably be posted on the first week of 2026. So, as you look ahead for the next 12 months, how do you assess the market? How do you assess the economy? Or are you confident that you're going to be able to continue to expand the business? What are you anticipating? What are you planning for?
I'm very optimistic with the economy for next year. I'm seeing a lot of buildings that are being finished and completed, drawings being approved. And I know from my furniture background, I've seen ebbs and flows of construction, different, everything from 2013 to 2025, tariffs and
Right.
containers being a lot more expensive. So I think we're at a predictable standpoint in the economy where we know
Okay.
what could and will happen. And for me, that's making me very optimistic to continue growing and acquiring more companies. I'm also very optimistic that Flockhart can grow at a really good run rate because of the fact that there's more companies that want these facilities to be managed properly that are lacking it today. And as we're talking to customers, like, oh yeah, we don't have anyone to do that. So I've been super optimistic the last 6 weeks. And I just think what we're doing it is human people powered. And I'm not going in with a SaaS company, a software as a service. I'm not
Right.
going in with technology. We're like our biggest value add is the people that we bring to the table. And what I love about something we say at Flockhart is be better every time. And that could be powered by the people, it could be powered by our processes, it could be powered by AI. But the
Okay.
goal is just to be better every time and provide that hands-on service.
And on the flip side, though, what do you see as the major challenges that you're going to have to be dealing with?
Yeah. I think supply chain has still been difficult from time to time. It's
Mhm.
some days unpredictable and you don't know where a tariff might get slapped. And for better or for worse, we are a global economy. So parts, pieces, even if they're manufacturing, assembling it in the US, there still might be things coming from different parts of the world. So that's definitely challenging. I think the second part to it, though, is actually hiring. It's
Mhm.
been really hard to find good people that want to work with their hands. And we've
Oh
been
yeah.
reaching out to like Middlesex County College. We've been reaching out to trade schools and we're trying to approach the students when they're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old and say, hey, if you don't want to sit in an office and you actually want to go out and be mobile and physical all day, we can provide a pathway for you and build out a plan where you might be physical the first few years, maybe go into a project coordinator, project manager role. But
Mhm.
it's been really hard to find people that know how to work with their hands, which we don't mind training them, but it's
Right.
definitely challenging because I think we're so wired as an economy sometimes to say, hey, go to high school, go to college, get a job in an office, and trades for a long time were like, hey, you don't want to do that. That's not a good role. And we're trying to flip the story of, no, you want to do a trade, and this is why.
Okay. Right. But given all those, you're still optimistic about 2026 and about growth and about
100%.
staying on the path that you
Yeah,
set for yourself.
absolutely.
Very good. Okay. Matthew Negron, founder of Think Simplicit. I hope you'll come back and tell us a little bit more about what you can't tell us about now, about what you've got in the works. That would be great.
That'll be exciting. I would love to. Definitely would love to chat to you next year when we're a little bit further along. And then I think there'll be a great story of both Blind Works and Flockhart and a few other things to talk about in there.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. Thanks again for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.